Christmas Adventure, starring Amanda McClure and Alex McClure.
A story. Tell us a story,
Shouted the baby polar bears. It was time for them to go to bed for the whole winter, so they wanted to hear a wonderful Christmas story to dream about.
All right,
Mama Polar Bear said.
I'll tell you an extra special story. But then you must promise to go right to sleep.
Oh yes, we will,
They promised. So Mama Polar Bear began. Not so very long ago, in a wonderful place called North Carolina, there lived a girl named Amanda. Amanda loved the city she lived in, Durham, where she had a lot of fun with her pet, Sport. Most of all, she enjoyed playing with Alex. Though Amanda and Alex loved Durham, they often thought of visiting other exciting places in the world. They wanted to have thrilling adventures, and they wanted to go soon. After all, they were not getting any younger. Amanda was now 5 years old. So they thought and they dreamed and they wondered how they could get to see exciting places. It was almost Christmas when they got an idea. They would write to Santa, but instead of asking for toys, they would ask for airplane tickets to some exciting place. And so they carefully worded their letter to Santa. Dear Santa Claus, our letter this year is different. Instead of asking for toys and stuff, we want to ask you for airplane tickets to some exciting place. Thanks a whole bunch. Your friends, Amanda and Alex of Durham, North Carolina. Oh, any exciting place with lots of adventure will do. They sent the letter off and began to daydream about all the wonderful places they might visit. You can imagine how excited they were to get a mysterious letter about 2 weeks before Christmas. It was from the North Pole. Sure enough, when they opened the letter, it was from Santa himself. The children were wide-eyed as they read.
Dear Amanda and Alex, what a surprise to get your letter here at the North Pole. You are asking for a very unusual present. And at first, I wasn't sure just what to do. But now I know. Keep your eyes open. You won't be expecting what happens next. Ho, ho, ho. Your friend forever, Santa Claus. Oh, by the way, best wishes to you both and to Sport too.
Well, when they read Santa's letter, the children were so excited they didn't know what to do. They clapped their hands and jumped up and down and laughed until they were very, very tired. Then they settled down to wait. Amanda and Alex waited, and they waited, and they waited, and nothing happened. Finally, 2 days before Christmas, they decided that Santa had forgotten. After all, they thought, Santa is so busy, especially at this time of year. But that same evening, as darkness began to fall, they heard the jingling of bells. They ran to the front door and flung it open. Just touching down in a sleigh was Santa himself. The children could hardly believe their eyes.
Good job,
Santa said to his reindeer. He turned to the children and called,
Come along. This is your flight. All aboard.
Are we riding in your sleigh? Amanda and Alex cried.
Yes,
Said Santa.
but come quickly.
So Amanda and Alex jumped into the sleigh. Pulling a big furry blanket over their laps, they listened to Santa whistle and shout and call his reindeer by name.
Let's go, Donner. Come on, Dancer. Hurry, Comet, Cupid, and Vixen. Come on, Prancer, Comet, and Blitzen. Oh, and you too, Rudolph.
And then they held their breath and felt their hearts pound as the reindeer snorted softly and the sleigh rose into the air. As Santa drove the reindeer higher and faster, the children asked, What wonderful and exciting place are we going to? Santa gave them a quick sideways wink so that he could keep his eyes on the sky ahead and said,
We're going to the North Pole.
The children couldn't believe their ears. It was a dream come true. Soon the air felt much cooler, and the stars seemed so close that the children could almost touch them. All of a sudden, they saw twinkling lights in the distance. The sleigh started down, and soon they could see smoke from the chimneys. As they came closer to Santa's village, their ears tingled with a strange sound. Tiny, high-pitched voices singing this happy song.
Just one more day till Christmas Eve, and still our work is not quite done. We've toys and games to finish yet, and then we'll have to wrap each one. There won't be time to celebrate with all the happy girls and boys. For as you know, we got their necks, we have to start on next year's toys.
As the sleigh with all three passengers touched down softly, Mrs. Santa came running out.
Dear me,
She told Santa,
I'm glad you brought help. Dear Grinwald, our master elf, and his whole family have the measles. That's 17 workers out sick. How on earth are we ever going to get all the presents finished?
But these children came to have an exciting time, not to work.
said Santa.
Still,
He rubbed his chin thoughtfully.
we're in a tight spot, aren't we?
Amanda and Alex jumped up and down, tugging Santa's sleeve. But we want to help, they cried. Getting the toys ready is exciting. Please say you'll let us help.
Very well.
Santa smiled.
It's all settled. And thank goodness you're here.
So all night and all next day, everyone worked as hard as they could. They dressed dolls and painted wooden horses and put Jack-in-the-Boxes into their boxes. When each present was finished, it was carefully tied with a pretty ribbon and a tag saying,
Merry Christmas from your friend, Santa Claus. Ho, ho, ho.
Finally, by noon on Christmas Eve, the presents were finished, wrapped, and ready to put into Santa's bag. Santa turned to the children and said,
Thanks to you, the presents are ready. We want to show you around the North Pole. You've been such a big help. Now, let's have some fun. Ho, 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 ho.
There were so many places to see. First, they went to the giant toboggan run. Amanda and Alex took an exciting ride on the fastest toboggan ever. At the bottom, they slid out into the snow and tumbled for almost a mile before they could stop. They certainly had never done anything like that back in Durham. Next, they went to visit the cave of the Great White Walrus. It was very cold and drafty, but the walrus greeted them warmly.
Children,
He said,
have some seaweed and raw fish.
The children said, No, thank you. It looks good, but we've just eaten. What they really wanted was to touch his giant white tusks, but it didn't seem polite to ask. So they told him how nice his cave was, how different it was from where they lived, and then said goodbye. Amanda and Alex now crossed the big blue bridge of ice and climbed over the tip of the Mammoth Glacier. Almost at their feet was the beautiful village of the elves. The valley was filled with tiny houses painted bright red and yellow and blue and purple. They searched until finally they found Grinwald's house. The children squatted down and waved through the window. Grinwald, his wife, and their 15 children all had red bumps on their faces, but they waved back cheerfully as the children climbed into the sleigh to go back to the workshop. There, Santa loaded his sleigh with presents, turned to Amanda and Alex and asked,
Are you ready for the last part of your adventure?
Oh yes, they said eagerly.
All right,
Santa said.
climb into the sleigh and you can drive it back to Durham.
With great excitement, the children hugged as many of Santa's elves as they could. There were lots of them, you know. Then they hugged Mrs. Santa and shouted, Goodbye, and thank you all for everything. Just as before, the sleigh rose off the ground and flew very fast in the crisp night sky. In the twinkling of an eye, the children were standing in their own town. They waved goodbye to Santa, and as he drove away, they heard him exclaim,
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Ho, 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 ho.
It was a Christmas they would never forget.
Well now,
said Mama Polar Bear as she looked down at her two baby bears. They both had nodded off to sleep just as the story about Amanda and Alex had ended. So she tucked her babies in, kissed them goodnight, and just as she turned out the light, she began to yawn herself. The end. The Great Christmas Adventure, starring Amanda McClure and Alex McClure.